Hi, this is Todd with you doing This Is How You Do It egg rolls. Tell you what we got here. I got the egg roll wraps in the cooler section, and they're just basic wraps. Celery, carrot, garlic, some onion, the cabbage that's going to go in it. We're going to use the egg to do a egg wash that's going to hold this wrap shut. And then these other sauces here, the soy, the sesame, this is some sugar here to sweeten it up, and that's going to be fried with the meat. The water I have here is what you're going to wet your finger when you want to put these wraps on. And we're doing chicken, cabbage, egg rolls. And I'll get started here. The meat we're going to use is just chicken. You could use pork or anything else. We're going to do chicken on this one. We'll get off all these scraps. Make sure your knife is nice and sharp again. So I always tell you to sharpen it on my videos because it's important to keep that edge on there. Now, I kept this chicken kind of frozen. Reason being is it's a lot easier to cut when it's frozen a little bit. Your knife will still go through it, but you'll get much better slices. Let's put my little water over there. We'll just get more of that. No, since this is going to egg roll, it's really got to be chopped up. You can buy ground chicken if you don't want to go through this process, but again, you'd have to go to the store. I'm trying to do this with things you would have in the house. Keep chopping this up. And again, since it's frozen, I know I'm getting pretty good cuts on that, so I can actually see the cubes I'm cutting. And then we'll go back over it a couple times to really get it cut up. So again, always keep your fingers back when you're cutting so you don't cut yourself. Like I said, if you get in the habit of sharpening your knife, every time you start, you'll know it's sharp and you're going to be a lot more careful when you're using it. Okay, so we got other chicken. Okay, I'm just going to keep chopping a little bit more, make sure it gets nice and small pieces, because again, it's going in an egg roll. Now I'm just doing a quick chop. Keep it both ways, okay. Now, so we got our pan heating up, it's getting nice and warm. We've got the chicken cut. Now, the only thing I'm going to be cooking as far as the vegetables with this is the garlic to give it lots of flavor. You don't want to put that into your egg roll without cooking that. It'll be a nice, strong bite when you get into that. We want that to fry up with the meat, give the meat some flavor. And always salt and pepper your meat. Now this one, we're going to use sesame oil. Just want to coat the pan a little bit. Sesame oil is really strong, so when you use that, you're going to taste it. Now, you might have to add some additional oil of another sort. You don't want to get too crazy on that sesame oil. Like I said, it's a very strong oil. You'll know it's in there. Now, a lot of people would fry ginger with this at the same time. I don't care for ginger. No one here at our house really likes it. Just leave the ginger out. It makes it the way they want it. This is how we do it. While that's heating up, I'm going to go ahead and start working on the vegetables. Roxy. Now, since I cut raw meat on that, we're going to get a new cutting board. Switch that out. Now, this next part, when you're doing your egg rolls, you're not really cooking these vegetables. You're kind of steaming them. So, on the stove, I have hot water that I started. It's just going to be to pour over the cabbage and vegetables so they kind of get soft before you deep fry them. You're hoping the deep fryer will cook them the rest of the way. We got this going. Toss it around a little bit. The new copper pan, we're testing out both these kinds to see how they work. So far they hold up pretty good. Now since we're not going to be cooking these, I wish you could smell that right now. That sesame oil is so strong, it's in the room everywhere. So if you're going to chop up your vegetables, you got to chop them real fine or shred them if you're putting them into an egg roll, because you don't, like I said, you're not cooking this, so you're just going to be pouring water over it, but you want some of that cabbage or the celery flavor in there, and you don't have to have all the strings as they kind of stay off your shredder. We're just going to be mixing that into the cabbage mix. And if you like a lot of celery, put more in. So we shredded that down. Same with the carrot. You're not going to be cooking those either, so they got to be really small and thin. You can even continue by chopping them up a little bit more with the knife. See, they're coming out really fine. Gives it a nice color too when you get into your egg roll. Okay, so we got this all shredded up. I'm going to get this over here in the bowl. part of our mix that's going in there. You don't have to put onion in. We like onion, but again, it has to be very fine. So again, if you just run that up and down your finger, barely move your finger, you can get almost see-through onions. You don't need a lot because it's going to be strong. You can see how thin those actually come out. So we'll throw that in there. Oh, this meat's looking pretty good. We're going to put the soy sauce and sugar in there. It takes about a teaspoon, maybe a teaspoon and a half of soy sauce and give it some color. We're going to put the sugar in. It's going to sweeten it up. That's about a teaspoon and a half of sugar. Now I'm only using one chicken breast, so this is a fairly small batch. But we don't need a whole bunch. We're not saving them for later or anything. It's a one-time shot. So we'll keep that going there. My grease over here is looking nice and warm. Now I got to do cabbage. That's the main ingredient here. So now the cabbage is going to be a little trickier. You got to get this really shredded, and you can't really shred it on that. So if you can get it started, just barely move your finger back. Keep running up and down your knuckles. I don't know if you can see that with the camera, and my knuckles are there. And it's coming out really fine shred. So you can see I'm keeping it right there on my knuckle. So if you get a big knife with a wide blade, you got a lot more room to move. If you have a thin knife, you'll tend to hit your knuckle. Also make sure when you buy a knife that it has enough room for your knuckles, that you're not hitting the board. Me being a really big guy, my hands are huge, so I gotta have a big restaurant style knife to get a good grip on it. Make sure you're using a knife that's made for what you're doing too. So we're gonna shred all this down. Keep it real thin. I'm gonna thick part down. You can turn it and start doing a whole quick chop again. We're still gonna chop this some more going the other way. And that's a good example why that big blade's so helpful right here. It's really running up and down my knuckles without hurting myself. That's getting hard to chop. Roll it over. Get these all done here. These big leaves are going to cook better than these, heat better than these down here. This should be enough to make maybe 6 to 12 egg rolls with all the stuff we're putting in it. That's it, and we're just going to add that to our bowl again over here. I'm getting my meat stirred up, so it's just getting nice and browned in. They're caramelizing a little bit. Looks nice and cooked. This is where the point you might want to add more salt and pepper if you want, but the soy sauce is really salty. You see the sugar caramelizing on there that we put in. I'm going to turn that down. Now this is where that hot water comes into play. We're just pouring the hot water over the cabbage because you just want to get it soft before you put it in there. And any excess water we can take out. You put that over there, kind of mix it around. That water was pretty much boiling, almost. You don't have to let it soak long, just enough to really soften it up. And when we deep fry this, it should cook a bit more inside the egg roll. Okay, the meat looks good. Just check this a little bit more now. Looks like it's getting pretty soft. I'm going to pick a couple up and check them to see if it's getting a little crunchy still. So our cabbage has been soaking maybe 5 minutes, just enough to get a little soft. Now I'm going to strain them out. When I soaked them, didn't really give a good time on there. It's more of, I guess, how crunchy you want them. They should be slightly crunchy still. Kind of wilting is what you're looking for now, too, and try to get some of that flavor off there. Now, at this point, you're definitely going to want to add more salt and pepper to your taste, because all that cabbage you add is not going to have any seasoning on it, so it's just been warmed up. So now we're going to slide that back in the bowl. And do some salt and pepper and see how it looks. So again, just a taste, but you put quite a bit of cabbage in there. Pepper. Kind of mix that all in. It should be fairly dry. You can see in about the bowl I got just a little bit of water, and that's for the whole batch. So you know, as long as when you're making your egg rolls, you keep stirring it so you're not getting all the water at the end, because it's going to keep soaking in here while we're working on the egg rolls. It smells really good. We need smell-o-vision. Okay, so now we're going to get just the egg white so we can make our wrap stick. And if you haven't done it before, you crack it in half. Just tip the egg back and forth. If the yolk breaks, not a big deal. You're just trying to get just the egg white. And you can have a nice added double yolker for breakfast there. Okay, so now we're going to wrap some of the egg rolls. I got my egg white stuff here. I got water, my wraps. And when you buy your wraps, they come with the directions on how to fold it so you get the right wrap on it. So here's our wraps. Again, keep mixing that liquid in a little bit. You don't want it to get too dry on you. We're gonna put some in the middle. How big they are, you gotta be able to close that whole thing in there, so it takes a lot less than you would think to fill it. So I'm gonna do water, get this corner, and we're gonna fold it away from us. Stick it down to that flour. It should stick good. Push down and kind of get your shape. Use water on your fingers. It gets all that to kind of stick with the flour there. Fold it over. Put water around all those. Same thing over here. Now I do the last one. We want to seal really good, so we're going to put egg white on it. You want that to really get a good seal so it doesn't get grease inside. And then anywhere you got little spots, just kind of mush them down with your finger, get the water on them. That flour that's on there will help bind it together so it doesn't leak in the deep fryer. Now if you rip one of these, don't even try frying it. It won't work. It'll start exploding on you. So if it does rip, you're better off just starting over. So I'm going to continue wrapping these till we get a few done. Okay, we got a few wrapped. And we don't have a regular deep fryer, we just use a pan with oil. You gotta make sure it's not too hot. We did a test one to see how it came out. Show them when we did a test, it came out a little hot. So we turned it down a little bit, let it cool. And now we're gonna add the rest of them. Now if they start floating, you can use something to hold them down. And I guess you're gonna cook them till they're golden brown. That's the goal here. Should be take a couple minutes, I think, a minute or two. We'll see how long these go for. That's today. They're not playing friendly. Oh, there goes one stayed. I think there's one hiding under there. Yep. Keep moving them around. Yeah, if you have a deep fryer, this will be a lot easier because you can just drop them in there and they usually have something to push them down in to grease with. Okay, so we're getting them out. Pretty golden brown, or nice and puffy. Big. And you hear all that popping in the grease? That's the water that drained out of there from little holes that we had. So there you go. We have egg rolls ready for everybody. Thank you. This is how we do it. Comment, try it, let us know what you think.